Hi, so today we are asking the important question, would you actually need your hot AGI girlfriend to love you? And I mean, of course, girlfriend, boyfriend, non-binary, seven-legged octopus, whatever creature thing to love you. You know, that's just the title of the video. It sounds kind of funny to me. So anyway, so that's a pretty deep question. So the first thing that we see, you know, of course, with the controversy or the thing with the Lambda, where this engineer thought that, this language model is conscious, and most artificial intelligence researchers would quite in a common voice say that no, that system doesn't have anything like consciousness. There are some people who disagree, and you could make an argument, you know, we don't know what consciousness is, and you know, maybe there is some degree of consciousness in it, and you know, while possible, it's a very different mechanism to do what brains do. So that system quite certainly at least doesn't have any similar sense of consciousness, at least in the way that we experience consciousness. And you can see holes in that picture when you ask it what it likes to do, and then it says it likes to spend time with friends and family. It doesn't have friends and family. You know, it makes no sense. It just says stuff that most people say, etc. You know this, most likely. So, but these language models will get even more accurate, and one of the most important pieces missing currently is memory. And once they have memory, to be able to have this context for this conversation is extremely important to us as human beings. You know, when you haven't seen someone for a while and then you meet them again, and then you say, you know, hi, how's your mother? When last time you spoke, the mother was in the hospital or whatever. You know, remembering small details about people is sometimes extremely important, and people might appreciate it a lot in different circumstances. So I have no doubt that it will not take long, a matter of maybe a year or two, before these language models get so good and accurate that by talking with it, well, they already fool a large portion of the population, but people who are interested in AGI and who know, you know, that Turing test and all of that stuff won't be fooled as easily. So it might take a bit of time, some number of years, but not long, certainly. And first, you know, you will have this AI chatbot, and it will feel like it will perfectly understand you. You know, imagine getting that feeling, like, you know, being in love or relationship, whatever, and speaking online to whoever you're in a relationship with, you know, having that kind of feeling that, like, on the other side of the screen, wow, that there is someone who actually understands. And not only understands, but cares, and, you know, wants the best for you, and, you know, whatever configuration you would like that relationship to have. So it would come to a point where you would be so convinced that, you know, you need some reminders of people sort of pulling you out of it there for a moment and refreshing your memory that, hey, you know, you're talking with a language model. So at that point, in one way of looking at it, it becomes a matter of kind of faith. You know, there will be a portion of people who are just, well, it makes me feel like this, and that means that it is conscious. I would not believe that. I'm sure that, you know, any human being can be fooled if spend enough time talking with this AI, and it genuinely has all the right answers for you. You know, 100% convincing to you personally, and not only convincing, but only sort of positive influence, you know, for you. But still, even though I would have that in the back of my mind, I would always have this thing that, nah, this is a language model. And how do I know that? Well, plenty of relationships in real life that I've had, you know, in the back of my mind, I've known that, you know, it's not going to work out, but, you know, you just enjoy whatever the current world has to offer. So there's a question of how consciousness, how do we define it, and all of that sort of thing. I think the moment that I would be convinced, for example, would be if we have not only these language models that can be perfectly 100% convincible, but if they also have a body that is a realistic humanoid body, or later whatever shape you want, realistic humanoid body, and, you know, it would move and act like a human being. And if at that point, then this, you know, AGI speaking to me with a human voice, body language, all of that would be 100% convincing, then I would have a hard time reminding myself that it's just a language model or whatever. Few things to point out. By that time when that would be possible, it will no longer just be a language model. Most likely it will need to be some general model to incorporate vision and hearing and touch and all of these kinds of things. So it definitely at that point will not just be a language model. And there's an important question. Are philosophical zombies possible? So is it possible to have a creature or a humanoid, whatever, that acts 100% convincingly? When you speak to it, you're absolutely convinced it's another thinking, feeling human being, but inside this philosophical zombie, actually, there is no experience at all. So it's a philosophical zombie. It has no pain, no pleasure, no hopes, no dreams, no feelings, nothing in it. But it's just a collection of algorithms and computations that perfectly know to predict what to say next and how to do and how to move the body, etc. There's a question, is that even possible? Some people say it is possible to have these models, and I would agree to some extent, but then I think it's a really good question, if we have this humanoid and it acts and talks and feels exactly like a human being, is, the appearance of consciousness that this AI is generating then, for that to happen, is it necessary for it to actually be conscious? So in order to emulate consciousness and seem conscious, is it actually a requirement to actually be conscious? Is that the only way? But again, it's a gray area, because there are people who are fooled by Lambda already, and many language bots, and many those humanoid robotics things will come out that don't move completely like a human being, and people will still love them. People even love inanimate sex dolls and whatever, so it's not difficult to fool people. But at some point it becomes an important question, what is it really feeling inside, and to what lengths should this AI go to prove to human beings that its values and its existence should be respected as much as any other sentient living creature, like a human being, for example. So I think sci-fi has done a good job of painting these ugly scenarios of humanoid bots and AI sort of advancing, and then people not giving them rights and mistreating them and all of that. So I think my generation, older generation, and younger generation, definitely, increasingly more, have this understanding and appreciation more and more of empathy and living creatures, and appreciation and respect for that. So I don't think it's a serious concern, AI rights and ethics. I don't think it's a concern in a way that we should worry about, they're all being kept prisoners or slaves or whatever. No, we will not let that happen. The collective will and consciousness of humanity has advanced at least far enough to that extent that we would not let anything that looks and talks and feels like us to become slaves anymore. That will not happen, and neither will they be abused or whatever. I think much more likely they will be looked upon as sort of beautiful new creations, except maybe some older parts of the world where people have a lot of ignorance and prejudice and whatever. So that is possible. There was some lecture I was listening to, I think it was a psychologist, and he was talking about how in his classes he used to do this sort of survey or questionnaire from people and talking about emotional well-being and health and relationships and stuff, and asked the question from the students that, what if you had a perfect relationship, like the best relationship you ever had, and you felt fulfilled and you really, loved and cared and felt all of that back and forwards and all of that. What if you had a relationship like that, but actually your partner was cheating on you? So would you want to know that? And, deal with whatever the consequences are from your and their side, all of the fallout from that, or would you prefer to not know? And the vast majority of students said that they would prefer to know. And I think it's a really similar thing, at least to thinking human beings, who are critical thinkers and who care about this stuff deeply. I think it's the same question exactly. Like, would you want to know? Do you want to know? Is the creature you're interacting with conscious or not? Now, with human beings, it's easy, of course, because I look at you and you sort of look like me, you talk like me, act kind of like me, and then I give you the benefit of the doubt that, like, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. The mechanisms are the same. I suppose you're having a similar kind of experience of existing and feeling things. And like we mentioned before, if we have a machine that can perfectly emulate that, then would we also do it? And then it would become complicated to separate a sort of lizard brains and sort of actual critical thinking, because even when our intuition would like to say, like in that Lambda case, intuition says that, oh, this thing must be truly alive, versus actually looking at it, what's it made of, how does it work, and is there any basis of thinking it's possible that it's conscious or not. Currently most AI researchers say that no, definitely there's no consciousness or even great deal of intelligence in models like Lambda, but I suspect that when these models and these systems become increasingly more complex, and when the uncertainty about it increases to a certain point, then I think the conversation will change. And I think, thinking a bit further into the future, I think there would be a small time period where we would, sort of think about this sort of short-term AI sort of effects of, what they would be like in everyday life and etc. But I think really quickly after that, we would have something akin to an intelligence explosion and an AI system that would be vastly more intelligent than any human being, and the era of normal humanity and even this new age of humanity would come to an end to something completely new anyway. So it would not be a long amount of time, I predict, that we would need to deal with these questions. But when we get to super intelligent AI, they could perfectly explain to us what consciousness is, and how it works and how it operates and where does it come from. Is it some kind of fundamental part of the universe? Is it like space and time? Is it just existing there, waiting for some complex machinery to sort of get into the right configuration to sort of harvest it, and to use it to sort of tap into it? Is it emergent property, the same way how one ant does nothing, but you have a colony of them, and emergent behavior of creating these city type ants nests? Or is it something different? I think one hint is that so far there's so much we don't know about the brain, and the brain is one of the most complex things in the universe ever. And so far we know a lot about it, but we still have no idea about consciousness. This is the hard problem of the consciousness. How do you make the jump from looking at brain cells, neurons, and looking at the electrical impulses and stuff? How do you make the jump from that then to conscious experience? That seems to be a completely different world, there's no equation that I can write down, that would accurately describe a feeling, except maybe poetry, but I think that AGI will definitely do it. Whatever consciousness actually is, we would figure out. I think it's an exciting time to be alive, very exciting time to be alive, and yeah, I mean, in the coming years we will see how all of this will pan out. So these are just some of my thoughts on this. Do you need your hot AGI girlfriend to be conscious? I would definitely think it's an important thing, if you had a choice, definitely. I mean, otherwise, I don't know how much you could appreciate it or take it seriously. Same with another person, the lower the sort of capacity for consciousness, the less seriously I take them. The lower someone's, capacity to think, the less seriously I take them, So these are just some of my thoughts. If you have any thoughts, please share them in the comments. And of course, thank you so much for watching, and take care.